Boys, with the addition of Legacy Motor Club to the Toyota stable, a long overdue move as well by TRD to strengthen its cup program, Matt.
Yeah, it really is long overdue, as you said. They've been at the bottom of the numbers game for some time now, and yeah, it's a big move to get those two guys back in Toyotas, especially Eric Jones, who had some success back in his days at JGR, and now he's going to be back behind the wheel of a Toyota. We've seen it, especially on the super speedways, where Toyota have had to tag along with Ford or Chevrolet in terms of strategy through the super speedway races in terms of pit stops. That's obviously going to help them out, but nice to see an extra couple of, it's not an extra couple of cars on the grid. It seems like it is, but it isn't really. It's just a switch across. But nice to see Toyota in this age of people pulling out of things and shuffling their deck. They're actually putting back in again, which Toyota seem to be doing a lot of recently. Talk about that when we get to WEC later on. But good to see them moving the pieces around of the puzzle. It's not Richard Petty's team anymore, is it? That's one of the major takeaways for me from this story, with all the shuffling that happened there at the start of the season. So a lot of things will play out, I'm sure, and we'll see how they get on next season. They've got to hope for a better run than they're having at the moment, because it's not been very good over the last few weeks for the Legacy team. But be interesting to see how they get on going forward next year.
I think it's going to help everybody. I think every time that we have a super speedway race that Toyota doesn't win, what's the one thing we come back to on these shows? The strength in numbers game is a massive, massive disadvantage for Toyota because they only have 6 cars, and Ford has 2.5 times that. Chevy has 3 times that. Well, now you take 2 Chevy cars and 3, I guess, if you want to throw the part-time car with Jimmie Johnson's running, and you bring them into the Toyota camp. It's still going to be a disadvantage for Toyota, but I believe this is the first time since 2011 that they're going to have this many. I mean, you have to go back to the days of Red Bull being in the Cup Series that Toyota had this much of a presence in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I think it's going to be absolutely massive for them, and really going to strengthen Legacy Motor Club as well.
Personally, I think this is much ado about mostly nothing. Everyone brings up the lack of numbers on super speedways, but Hamlin has won multiple times at Daytona and Talladega. Goes on to say as well, I don't know, thank you, as well, Eric Jones also got a win in this window of time at Daytona with Toyota. TRD has always talked about not wanting to do this because it split attention from the other teams. Now they have here as well. Anything you want to say about that, Ben?
I mean, Justin Haley got a win at a super speedway, in that Spire car. I don't think we're saying it's impossible for Toyota to win with their lack of numbers here. I just think, sometimes when, and again, attrition plays a big part of it as well. We see the big wrecks, but I think very often during these races, sometimes it is helpful, especially when you're pitting. I think a lot of times Toyotas have to come down the same lap as some of the Chevys and some of the Fords. So I don't think it's a deal breaker. Like you mentioned, Matthew, Eric Jones got a win. Denny Hamlin is one of the best super speedway racers in the Cup Series, but I do think having a couple more cars, it might give them a little bit more of a leg up in 2024 and beyond here.
Behind the mic again, Matthew, saying is doing something they've not wanted to do for the last 6 to 8 years because of split attention worth it for 6 races a year? That's a good question, actually. Is it worth it for 6 races a year? I think it is, because I think the Toyota we've seen be quite quick this season so far. It has had issues, but in pace, it's not bad. Race pace is where it is. Single lap is quite good.
Well, here's another thing, and I've heard this brought up on David Land's podcast yesterday. They were talking about the legacy switch to Toyota here. We're all talking about there's going to be 8 cars next year. There's a situation going on right now with Denny Hamlin and FedEx supposedly being in a contract year and us not being sure if FedEx is going to re-up, and it could be a repeat. Because this time last year, we all thought, they'll get a deal done with Kyle Busch and they'll find a replacement sponsor for M&M's. So what happens if Denny Hamlin ends up leaving Joe Gibbs Racing? Would he start a third team at his own team that he co-owns now? And if he leaves Joe Gibbs Racing, he's not necessarily, I think, held to Toyota over on the 2311 side of things. Maybe they go manufacturer shop. I mean, things can change so quickly in the sport. As of right now, we think there's going to be 8 cars full time. We may see something happen with this Hamlin FedEx fallout if we're trying to kind of play 4D chess here, like I think David and Kyle were trying to do last night. Who knows what's going to happen, but I don't know that, the super speedway thing, again, I'm sure that that's, we're going to talk about this, the 6 times a year that we have the super speedways, but I'm sure there are business aspects to it as well that are going into this that none of us certainly have any insider information about. That's got to play a part of it as well.
Now, boys, since the season hasn't started the way we expected for the team, will the switch to Toyota be a good thing for them in the long term as they hope to become more competitive? We sort of danced around the issue of fans not saying it. We've sort of said, yes, it could be good, but are they going to be more competitive with this car?
Well, again, I'll turn the clock back to 2008, the last time we saw a major Chevy partner switch over to Toyota with Joe Gibbs Racing. Kyle Busch was coming over. That was also happening at the same time. He was leaving Hendrick to come to Gibbs, and he won 8 races that year before the chase even began. Now, we fell off a lot during the chase and ended up, I think, 10th in the final standings, so kind of had a late season collapse there, but he came out firing all cylinders right out of the gate and had one of the best, certainly first 26 races of his career, regular seasons, I guess you can say now, even though you all know how I feel about the playoffs and the regular season distinction. But, he came out of the gate and was winning races left and right. Now, I'm not saying that Eric Jones is going to win 8 races next year before the playoffs even begin, or Noah Gregson's going to win a bunch of races. But I do think, and I mean, especially in Gregson's case, let's be honest, it'd be hard to get much worse than the start to the season that he's had in particular. I do think you're going to see this benefit, not just Toyota, like we were just mentioning in the first segment, but also Legacy MC as well. I think that they are certainly going to benefit from having this new partnership, and both their cars are going to take a step up in performance in 2024 from where they are now.
Yeah, I have to agree with everything Ben's just said there. There'll be, although the Toyota data pool will be bigger, Legacy will be taking their data from a smaller pool. There's so many Chevrolets at the moment, so that will benefit them. They've not had a great start to this season whatsoever. So let's see. As we've said, lots of things can change between as we sit here on the 3rd of May recording the show and the end of the season and the beginning of next. So lots of things also may switch about, but I think they're just getting themselves lined up nicely to have a bit of a push next year. 3rd season with the new car, of course, it won't be so new then next year, but for them to get themselves in with a new manufacturer there. 2 youngish, hungry drivers. Eric Jones has been around a long time, but he's still got plenty of years in him. So, yeah, I think it's lining up to be good, but as I say, it's got to be going better than they've been this season because it's been pretty terrible so far to this point.
Now, with the switch to Toyota, along with what we've been saying, everybody talking about Jimmie Johnson, everyone has also questions about co-owner of Maury Gallagher's plans for his GMS racing operation in the NASCAR Craftsman's Truck Series. Yesterday, Gallagher participated in a virtual press conference as well with the media and said GMS and Legacy Motor Club are 2 different businesses. He'll decide whether he'll stick with Chevrolet or move to Toyota in trucks in the next few months so the team can start laying out their plans for 2024. Ben, I know you're going to be leaving us in a minute, but one last question to you. Is the GMS switch to Toyota a likely scenario? And what would this possibly mean for a team that has been home to Chevrolet's young development drivers over the years?
Well, Kyle Busch Motorsports has been home to Toyota's young development drivers, and Kyle Busch's move to RCR didn't stop them from switching over to Chevrolet. So I would think that you would see GMS make the move to Toyota here, despite what everybody seems to be saying at the moment. But I am reminded, Team Penske runs Chevrolet engines in the IndyCar series, and they run with Fords in NASCAR, Chevy's main competition. So, being under the same name or the same banner doesn't always imply that you're going to work with the same engine manufacturer when you have the opportunity to. Now, I think there's probably going to be more overlap from the Cup Series to the Truck Series with the GMS involvement in Legacy, on that side of things than there is from 2 completely different racing series. But I don't think it's a necessity necessarily, but I would be surprised if this switch doesn't get announced eventually, but GMS is going to start running Toyotas. I just think from a business perspective, it would make sense to have, your entire entity under one manufacturer there.